Emerson's essay, The Oversoul, was first published in 1841. The essay provides important insights into his beliefs about God. In this essay, Emerson expresses his idea that God exists within each person and that we can connect with this divine presence without needing a church or a religious leader. The essay starts with two poetic quotes. The first is from English philosopher Henry Moore's poem Psychozoia, or the Life of Soul. Moore says we are born with an innate moral character that shapes how we act throughout our lives. Today, this idea is often seen as too simple because it overlooks how a person's environment and upbringing influence their behavior. Emerson chose this quote because it speaks to the individual soul we all possess and the larger soul of God that encompasses all of us. Moore believes that our souls, many in number, are part of God's own soul, which Emerson refers to as the Eternal One. This introduces a recurring theme in the essay, the relationship between the many and the one. While Emerson emphasizes our individual souls, he also notes that humanity is part of nature, where each object contributes to the whole and both the many and the one are interconnected. The second quote is a poem by Emerson himself, later titled Unity. In this poem, he explores two main ideas. The first is the concept of duality, where certain things naturally contrast with one another, such as east and west or day and night. Though these pairs are opposites, both are necessary for achieving wholeness. The second idea is a force that drives creation, which Emerson calls the Oversoul. This force is the same divine presence mentioned in Moore's poem, though it is unnamed there. Emerson's use of different names may be confusing, but he emphasizes that this force exists in everything, both living and non-living. The discussion of the essay is organized into 5 sections. In the first section, Emerson gives a general introduction and states his goal of defining the Oversoul. In the second section, he explains what this universal spirit is, noting that it can ultimately only be understood through our moral actions, not through words. The third section looks at the connection between the Oversoul and society. In the fourth section, he discusses how the Oversoul is revealed to us. Finally, the essay wraps up with a look at how the Oversoul shows itself in individuals. In the first section of the Oversoul, Emerson discusses the theme of accessibility, which is familiar to readers of his other essays. He believes that God is available to everyone, whether they actively look for a personal connection to spirituality or not. Echoing Henry Moore's idea that moral thoughts are part of our nature, Emerson states that there is a spirit of prophecy present in every person. This means that God is within each soul and each soul in turn honors God. Emerson highlights the idea of the many and the one by explaining that since every person has a soul that contains God, each soul reflects the other souls in the world. Meantime, within man is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the Eternal One. This means that we are all connected through our shared experience of God. Another important idea in this section is that moral actions show what words cannot express. These actions help us understand the divine presence that Emerson keeps mentioning. He admits that he struggles to describe this power in words. My words do not carry its august sense, they fall short and cold. Since we cannot fully grasp the God within us through language, the best way to demonstrate this presence is through our actions and character. Understanding comes from being moral individuals whose right action aligns with the oversoul and the common heart we all share. Emerson acknowledges that defining the oversoul is a challenging task. However, he expresses his intention to describe what hints of this transcendental force he has discovered in his own life and in society. Readers can appreciate the clarity of his thesis as a strong example of effective writing. Emerson also states that the oversoul cannot be understood through words, so he defines it by explaining what it is not, a stylistic approach he uses throughout the essay. He says all goes to show that the soul in man is not an organ, is not a function, is not a faculty, is not the intellect or the will. While the soul is none of these things, it uses them for its own purposes. For instance, the soul is not an organ, but it gives life to all organs. It is not a faculty, but it utilizes all of them. And it is not the intellect or the will, but it governs them. The soul is the driving force behind right actions, but it is distinct from the functions it employs. Language cannot paint it with its colors. Emerson also explains that the soul can abolish time and space, which are concerns that limit our experiences. We often rely too much on our physical senses instead of our spiritual resources. This reliance has become so overpowering that our intuition, the part of us that connects to our spirituality, becomes effective. Emerson acknowledges that there are still some thoughts that transcend time, such as our appreciation of beauty. Even though each generation may define beauty differently, all of us seek what we consider beautiful. The action of searching for beauty rather than the objects of beauty themselves is what is truly eternal. Emerson explains that an idea can transcend time because our souls grow through what he calls an ascension of state. This means we understand deeper truths not through physical experiences but through our minds. Gain insight into the spirit that connects everything in our world. We get closer to the oversoul. Emerson describes this deeper understanding as a law of moral and of mental gain, emphasizing that our connection to the oversoul is linked to our actions. The more we embrace this divine force in our lives, the more moral we become, leading to more moral actions. In this section, the theme of duality appears as Emerson discusses the relationship between the oversoul and our physical senses. This duality is significant because it shows how the oversoul triumphs over its opposition. The soul's scale is one. The scale of the senses and the understanding is another. Before the revelation of the soul, time, space, and nature shrink away. Here, Emerson emphasizes that the soul's understanding surpasses the limitations of our physical senses. Emerson concludes this section by reiterating what the soul is not, which helps clarify what it is. He also references the theme of childhood and virtues, which he often explores. Emerson next discusses how the oversoul connects people and manifests in society. He suggests that God's Spirit is present in every conversation. In all conversation between two persons, tacit reference is made as to a third party, to a common nature. That third party is not social, it is impersonal, it is God. This divine presence becomes evident in groups when they recognize it, leading them to act more nobly. The theme of accessibility is crucial here, since each person has a soul that is part of the oversoul. Everyone from the greatest person to the lowest is aware of God's presence during conversations. Our souls act as a connection, but we often don't mention it because language cannot fully capture its essence. Emerson emphasizes the importance of acting authentically, without worrying about society's opinions. He urges us to express our thoughts, but they are influenced by societal expectations. Though God exists within everyone, Societal pressures can cause us to behave unnaturally, creating a gap between our souls and oversoul, which offers itself fully, unlike those who fear inconsistency. While Emerson asserts that God is within us, he also addresses the challenge of recognizing this presence. He refers to this recognition as revelation, an influx of the divine mind into our mind. He chooses the singular mind instead of minds to highlight the connection that unites all of humanity. Emerson supports his idea of revelation by citing examples from various religions such as Moravianism, Calvinism, and Methodism. Despite their differences, these faiths all illustrate the oversoul's revelation, where the individual soul always mingles with the universal soul in a state of ecstatic understanding. In this section, Emerson emphasizes the theme of action versus language. We can wonder why the world is the way it is or what happens to our souls after death. But the oversoul does not answer these questions with words. He recalls how Christ's disciples showed God's plan through their actions, not just their words. Even though it seems natural to ask about our spiritual future, Emerson believes such questions are pointless because any answers would be beyond our understanding. He states bluntly that asking these questions is a confession of sin and that God has no answer to them. Instead of worrying about the future, Emerson advises us to focus on living and taking responsible actions, as this is what will ensure our immortality. Emerson also argues that we should not judge each other's actions. Each person is solely responsible for their own, and God has already chosen who will be saved, asserting that humans are born sinful and can only find redemption in ideas, stating that no one has the right to judge others. In this final section, Emerson discusses how individual character reflects the oversoul. A person who is spiritually close to the oversoul has a good character and performs noble acts because the image of the deity shining through individuals, which echoes biblical references to God as light, such as Psalm 27, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." One of Emerson's recurring themes is the difference between genuine and superficial learning. He explains that a scholar or poet who speaks from personal experience shares their inner truth, while one who imitates others speaks from outside themselves. The divine spirit within us is connected to the deeper meaning we feel when we encounter timeless poetry. Emerson's belief in accessibility shines in this section. He firmly believes that every person should be rewarded for living an honest life. But the soul that ascends to worship the great God is plain and true, has no rose color, no fine friends, no chivalry, no adventures, does not want admiration, dwells in the hour that now is in the earnest experience of the common day. Those who live simply will be rewarded with immortality, similar to his idea in self-reliance, that those least influenced by society's distractions will lead the most fulfilling lives. The democratic ideal where everyone can benefit equally by shedding material temptations is a recurring theme in Western history. A famous example is from the Sermon on the Mount. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And blessed are the gentle, they shall have the earth for their possession." In American literature, Emerson's contemporary Henry David Thoreau echoed this in Walden, urging simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. "I say, let your affairs be as 2 or 3, and not 100 or 1,000. Emerson's contributions to this uniquely American ideal of equality are significant. Few writers can match his ability to express powerful ideas succinctly, as seen in his statements like "the simplest person who in his integrity worships God becomes God," or "Behold, it says, I am born into the great, the universal mind. I, the imperfect, adore my own perfect."